It was right. It was right for the country to be independent. Many countries were being independent. Many African countries were being independent because they couldn't be babies all the time. You can't take it. The boy is a child of 10 years. He wants to go and play football, and you can't. You are taking him there. You are all the time with him. It was the right time for the country to grow up. It was good for Britain. It was to see the child grow. The child had grown up after 68 years. It was good for Uganda to feel now it was time.
In the new Africa, one more independent country, the state of Uganda. At Entebbe Airport, Prime Minister Milton Obote and His Highness the Kabaka wait to greet the Britannia, which brings the Duke of Kent to represent the Queen at the independence celebration.
The country had been galvanized and mobilized, and we believed that independence was both a good thing and was going to produce better times for Uganda and her people. We did not anticipate a number of the challenges that we were confronted with.
President Obote era wangala sebo bote wafe tuliko kutuka kuwa presidenti.
Under British colonial rule, most of Uganda had been governed as a polite alliance between and among monarchies. In the West, British officials were bound up in a close relationship with the kings of Bunyoro, Toro, and Ankole. At the center of things was Buganda, the most populous and most prosperous part of the Uganda Protectorate. In 1900, Queen Victoria had signed an agreement with the Kabaka, the ruler of Buganda, guaranteeing the kingdom's internal sovereignty and securing the power and prestige of its monarchy. This film has recently been recovered from the archives of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. It shows the British Queen Mother during a 1959 visit to Uganda. By the time this film was made, Buganda's ruling class was at the height of its powers. Some royalists hoped for a separate independence for their kingdom, imagining a future in which Buganda would govern itself. Waiting in the wings, though, at the edges of the receiving line that afternoon in 1959, was a young man recently returned from Kenya, where he had spent years working for an oil company. He had been elected as a member of the Legislative Council for Lango District. His name was Milton Obote.
No, at the beginning, when he became the Prime Minister, he was very particular about his way of dressing. And he told me that Kwame Nkrumah helped him. He said these new independent countries have some leaders who have not been probably exposed to the outside world, which was the truth. So Nkrumah went out of his way to send some of his ministers go and show them where to get these things. Yes, Nkrumah did that. So he sent one of his ministers to show my husband where he can make those suits in London.
Wow.
So he had shoes. I mean, his suits were specially made. And in those days, he used to wear those striped, suits and the kind of suits you see with the lawyers in UK, that kind of thing. That was in the 60s. He had his tailor. Yes, he had a sense of humor. Yes, he did. When he was with his group of his friends, he was very jolly. But in public, he was serious. But once he was with his small group of people he knew very well, he was himself.
How do you think he saw himself as He was the first prime minister of independent Uganda. Did he see himself as a pioneer?
That is difficult for me to say. But he did very well, considering that he came from Kenya, came and joined politics, moved very quickly to the top. I think that was something. Because I had been working in Kenya. And that's where he came from and joined politics of that day. And moved very fast, very quickly through the party hierarchy and became the president of Uganda People's Congress.
And at midnight, Sergeant Major Sidney Small of Birmingham lowers the Union Jack that has flown in Uganda for nearly 70 years. At the same moment, the 4th Battalion King's African Rifles becomes the 1st Battalion Uganda Rifles. And to replace the Union Jack, the black, gold and red flag of the new young state, Uganda is born again, free and independent.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was absolutely gorgeous to see the Ugandan flag going up for the first time. Okay? Yeah.
How did you feel?
Oh, we felt, I don't know how to describe it, but it was amazing, it was encouraging, it was fantastic, it was, for us to say that this Uganda is now an independent country and it's no longer part of the British Empire. It's an independent country.
Why did it matter to you in '62?
It did, because we had grown up under the British. All our training, everything was under the British. We knew that the leaders, the governor, the what have you, the district commissioners were all British. So for us now to be told Uganda is now independent and you have a Ugandan to lead the country, it was very exciting. Yeah.
We went out again to see the fireworks, the tattoo. Now, tattoo was actually a parade by the policeman. I don't think we had a band then. We were talking about policeman. And we saw this glamorous display of the band and the policemen riding bicycles through rings of fire until the climax, when we saw the Uganda flag coming down, Uganda flag going up and the British flag coming down. We had been taught to sing the national anthem at college. We had even been given, I think, little flags which we'd wave to the guests as they pass by.
What I remember is that the road was not good, bushy in different places, and we were so many people, so many going. Even if there were some VIPs, but you would not recognize because there's so many people were walking to Colonial. So when we go to Colonial, we went in our places, and the time came when the flag was going up over Uganda and the British came down. There was a lot of jubilation, a lot of noise, people jumping, celebrating because of the British flag coming down and the Uganda going up. That's what I remember.
Do you remember the first time you sang the new national anthem?
I think that was the first time we sang. That's the first time we sang, and we didn't know it very well. It was mainly the soldiers who were singing it. Yeah, it's what I remember.
October 8th, Duke of Kent went to visit Mengo, Uganda government. So that is their independence. I didn't attend that because I wasn't invited. But when I came back, I told you when I came back I had no car. I was borrowing my friend Milia's car to move around. So I went to Balakitiri. I was the minister responsible for giving out invitations. I went to him and I think I got each and every important invitation to important events of the independence. But I had no car to get there. So we traveled in the same car with Emilia to the independence ground. We didn't know then that she would marry the prime minister, neither did she know him. So we went and sat down and waited and enjoyed the whole activity. Yeah.
Next morning, the Duke and Duchess arrive at Parliament House for the state opening of Parliament. Uganda's first legislative council met 41 years ago and has grown larger and more representative ever since. From now on, its power is supreme.
In 1956, Pumla Kisosonkole was the first woman to be in LegCo.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
and thereafter,
appointed by the governor.
That's right. And thereafter, other women joined, like Seta and
Yes,
Tio.
yes. Later on, more women were elected. Joyce Mpanga, more women later were elected in the LegCo before independence.
So there were these women who were in public life in colonial times, but there were no women in London when the constitutional negotiations happened.
No.
Why?
Again, it is the attitude of men. Because it was the attitude of men that women were not worthy yet to plan, to make decisions for the country. In the conference in London, the Constitutional Conference took, it had the UPC, the DP, and all the regions, Buganda, Busoga, Teso region, Ankwale, all the other kingdoms, they sent their representatives, but none took women.
At Twitobi, the Kabaka's palace, His Highness is to give a cocktail party, and more crowds are waiting and entertaining themselves while they wait to see the Duke and Duchess arrive. But first, the Guard of Honor. That salute, by the way, is a traditional sign of loyalty to the Kabaka by his followers. The Kabaka himself arrives, a ruler whose dynasty and kingdom were thriving long before the first European explorers came. The present Kabaka is His Highness Sir Edward William Frederick David Walungembi Mutebi Luangula Mutesa II, who now welcomes the Duke and Duchess.
Under the constitution that brought Uganda to independence in 1962, the Buganda Kingdom retained much of its political and administrative power. Milton Obote was elected as the first Prime Minister of independent Uganda, but the ceremonial head of state was Frederick Mutesa, the Kabaka of Buganda. Here is a scene from an old Uganda Broadcasting Corporation film made in October 1963, the day Mutesa became Uganda's first president.
The whole idea of being independent was something that we felt very happy about. Ugandans, Africans taking charge of their own affairs. A better Uganda was promised and was expected, and we looked forward to it. True, as young people, we wanted a Republican country, a forward-looking country, a country that was not bogged down with the old systems of feudalism and the like. So we were very strong about this, and we articulated those views in public through the National Union of Students of Uganda, NUSU.
Uganda's first government rested on a precarious parliamentary alliance between Milton Obote's party and Kabaka Yeka. Kabaka Yeka was founded in 1961 to defend the prerogatives of Uganda's monarchy against the encroachments of majority rule. In this clip, KY members led by the lawyer Abubakar Mayanja celebrate their victory in the Lochiko elections of February 1962.
And we always refer to as lost counties. Uganda has got, when we were at school, we would know all the counties in Uganda, 20. And we know so and so, Kagongo, Kadondo, Kago, Kyago, Sekibo, Wenemezikanga, and all Bugangas and Buyaga. They are all, we learned them as all Buganda. But there was also, as I grew up, later on, we came to know lost counties. Even in Buganda, it was the lost counties, Buganga and Buyaga. Bunyoro called them lost counties, and Buganda didn't consider them to be lost counties. The agreement that gave them Buyaga and Bugangans, I never went into that. But for me, that was not, it is, I noticed it brought a lot of problems.
The Lost Counties controversy pitted the Buganda kingdom against Bunyoro in a contest over which kingdom would govern the disputed territory that lay between them. In 1964, the Obote government held a referendum to determine the future administration of 2 of the lost counties. The vote was convincingly won by Bunyoro. The referendum broke the alliance between Milton Obote's UPC and Kabaka Yeka. It brought down the government of Buganda's Prime Minister Mikaeli Chintu. It inspired protests on the streets of Kampala as the Ganda people angrily challenged the referendum's results.
They lost their 2 counties. We became only 18 counties. You think we shouldn't have been angry?
In May 1966, Milton Obote, who was convinced that Buganda's king was plotting against his government, sent in the Uganda army to arrest the Kabaka and crush the kingdom's palace at Mengo. The battle that ensued was bloody and violent. The Kabaka escaped to London, but his palace, as this film shows, was wrecked.
Only a mile from the palace, I spoke to a Muganda whose family were in the Kabaka's service. As a member of the Baganda tribe who lives, in fact, very close to the palace, have you any estimate of how many Baganda have lost their lives in the recent trouble?
Yes, at the moment, when you come to underestimate the number of people who have lost their lives in Uganda, they are between 3,000 to 4,000 people.
Have you lost any members of your own family?
Yes, 2 of my relatives have lost their lives in this incident. But on my way back from where I was, it's 80 miles from Kampala, I found some people on the road being chased by the army, and people had been killed on the road. A number of people, in fact, were being killed on the road.
How would you describe the situation now?
Getting quiet. It was quiet yesterday, it's quiet today.
No fighting at the moment?
There hasn't been any fighting.
Except round the palace?
Around the palace there was no fighting.
What about the mortars and the rifles and the machine guns and so on?
Machine guns were in the palace. We have captured some. Guns were in the palace. We have captured some. We think others are still there, buried in the ground. But the most interesting thing is that the pressmen seem to think that the Kabaka has done nothing wrong. That it's only the government that has done wrong things. The Kabaka requested foreign troops in February without authority. The Kabaka organized a rebellion. And these are not noticed. But no problem, we'll always weather through.
Well, it was a fight, and we had to fight our way out. But you please forgive me if I don't make too long a statement tonight, because of the overwhelming sort of circumstances of my welcome and pleasure of being here, and that I've been to sort of a long, harassing experience. But I have recently had a trying experience. I hope that you will forgive me if I make this short statement to you. I'm most grateful indeed that the people of England have made this share of warmth, of extension of friendship towards me on my arrival. So, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, please understand that I'm terribly harassed for a bit, because I've got certain matters on my mind, particularly those of my closer relations, my wife and sister, got a brother also sort of behind, who were held, but they make it very difficult for me not to be, calm.
Now, I happen to be from Uganda, and I was here. So people hated me so much that how could I allow my husband to attack Nairobi? But the truth of the matter, I didn't know. I also heard about it that morning, that the Nairobi had been attacked. I was not involved in the politics of the running of the government. I was here as a full-time housewife and a social worker, because my work was to work with like women's organizations, the girl guards, the blind, the deaf. That was my work. I was not in politics, and I didn't know that they were going to attack the palace. That was a security matter. My husband probably knew, but I didn't know. I was just taken by surprise when I was told in the morning that the attack has taken place. But of course, people don't know that. They have hated me. Some still hate me up to now. That how could I allow my husband to attack the palace when I was here? But the truth of the matter is that I had nothing to do with it.
Well, we regretted the conflict. We regretted the conflict because we would have wanted political issues to be sorted out politically. That's correct. But our views, our political views remained the same: to see a progressive Uganda, to see a united Uganda, to see a Republican country.
They were looking for the Kabaka. So our house was also attacked, they dug it up, looking for guns and what. But I had that after. When I went home, I found the house was dug because they thought there were guns under the floor.
They dug up your house?
Yes, many houses were dug up, so they thought they were guns. Yeah. This is Kabaka's friend, so things.
Those happenings happened at that time. I don't even know why, but when I think of it today, I think Obote was too anxious and he didn't want to see himself being derailed. And so whatever he did was to ensure that he was secure.
David Ocheng was a friend of my husband. Came to see me and my new baby in Mulago. He took hold of my little baby in his he had big arm, just like that. Looked at her and said, "What a beautiful baby you have brought into Uganda, we have corrupted." And said, "You and I have a duty to bring it back to what happy it was, and even better."
Good luck to a new country, a new member of the Commonwealth, a new member of the growing community of African peoples. Britain has come a long way with you and wishes you well.
The problem is that these days they don't want to remember independence as such. It has been watered down. I'm sorry to say, I don't want to go into politics. It has been watered down. It's no longer as important as it used to be. With me, I still think it was a very important day. Still very important.
I'm asking, how should we, as we were born now recently, how should we remember the 60s, in your view? Is it a moment that gave Uganda a great deal of hope? Is it a moment that gave Uganda a great deal of pain? Or is it a moment that gave Uganda a mixed bag?
That's a very good question, I think. Definitely, when Uganda became independent, people were very excited. People started to realize that it was very hopeful. I must say the first 9 years, we are very hopeful. Many schools were built. 24 hospitals were built, 22, and education improved. And if Makerere, who had been a college during my father's time, in 1970, it became a university. So the first 10 years Uganda, I must say, developed. When it started to change hands through coups and wars, I said it became a different story.
Oh, Africa, see about Mama. Oh, Africa, see a beggar, Bagiranite, Sanye Bogereko, Africa, Africa, Africa Kulanju, Mama, Kwame Koloma, Mami Nyere. bakoze nnyo Mutesa Kabaka Milton Obote Tom Mboya basajja bakoze nnyo Omukozi Lumumba Okongoe Africa Africa Bakongo bakole bubi Abagirwaniride Sanyembo Gereko Africa, Africa Africa kulanya Oh, Kenya Africa Tanganyika Africa Oh, Uganda yo Africa Congo Africa Oh, Sudan Africa Uganda Africa Aya mama Aya Africa ni Atana wa musolongala byenaku Atana wa musolongala byenaku Atana wa musolongala byebabongala bye Nebakera kuja nebabafuza Nebakera mungoko nebabafuza Ululinya ku taxi no basanga Ululinya ku basi no basanga Ababatundi nemigobo na fende Nebobela mubense nyemitwalo Bakuja munne bakulija kenkwale Chitawe no swana no susolo musolo Atana wa musolo ngalabye baba ongalabye Atana wa musolo ngalabye naku Atana wa musolo ngalabye naku Atana wa musolo ngalabye baba ongalabye Oh baba Balojero musolo gwembagamba Olutukano kyale wagundi Kusubo isebo ne babazinda Ne bakulija kenkwalo n'omusolo Kitawe n'oswala n'osusolo musolo Leka ngulojero musolo gwembugamba Olutukano kyale waseki Kusubo isebo ne babazinda Ne bakulija kenkwalo n'omusolo Kitawe n'oswala n'osusolo musolo Zamagezi gembawa uwomusolo Natona bakuwasa uwomusolo Sikirungi basebo kuli omusolo Sikirungi nakamo kuli omusolo Masagazi wabwenze uwomusolo Kowalya wabwe uwomusolo Mayambala baba uwomusolo Erija baba uwomusolo Dominiko wabe uwomusolo Dominiko sebo uwomusolo Zeuze baba uwomusolo Sikirungi nakamo kuli omusolo Sikitufu basebo kuli omusolo Atana wa musolo ngalabye baba ongalabye Atana wa musolo ngalabye naku Atana wa musolo ngalabye naku Atana wa musolo ngalabye baba ongalabye Adana wa musolo ngala bienabu. Adana wa musolo ngala bienabu. Adana wa musolo ngala bienabu. Ngala bienabu. Oba mu mailo tano kirengera Apolo ngiri mubire Otuka mu Apolo hotel Enyumi zikasebo Amacholobera ke bagiteka mu katendo sikatendeka